Okay, we're
Please rise. The November 8th, 2023 meeting of Haliburton County Council is now in session. Warden Liz Danielson presiding.
morning, please be seated. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mishi-Saugig territory and in the traditional territory of the Mishi-Saugig and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Councillors Carter and Fury.
Moved by Councillor Carter, seconded by Councillor Fury. Be it resolved that the November 8th, 2023 Haliburton County Council agenda be approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any notice of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today?
I do have one, Warden Danielson. Councillor Carter has declared a pecuniary interest on the closed session item regarding the We Care property development, as he is on the board of directors for a charity involved.
Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of October the 25th? Councillors Royale and McKechnie.
Moved by Councillor Ryle, seconded by Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the minutes from the October 25th, 2023 regular and special meetings of Haliburton County Council be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. And we have no business arising from the previous meeting and no delegations, so we'll move right into planning reports. Just before you start, I should have taken the opportunity to have mayor's comments there, the warden's comments this morning. I just want everyone who's tuning in to recognize our new or about to be new CAO, Gary Dyke, who's going to be joining us. We're fortunate to have him. He comes with lots of experience and hopefully the same sense of humor that Mr. Rutter's got.
Or at least maybe have one.
And to acknowledge that this is Mr. Rutter's last county council meeting, but I'm going to reserve any speeches about that until tomorrow. And over to you, Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Madam Warden, to the rest of council. So before you is the monthly update for the planning department. Few things of note. We have now finished all our presentations to the local councils on the short-term rentals. Through that process, there was a number of comments that were received and would most likely lead to a couple of refinements in the draft bylaw. So we'll report on our efforts and the comments that were received over that period of time at the next county council meeting. So.
Anything substantive?
Well, there was a fair bit of back and forth on the use of sleeping cabins or bunkies. And one of the building inspectors was noted that there should be a change in the definition of the accessory building to be consistent with the building code, so that those definitions will require some tweaking. There were some couple typos that were mentioned as well that will be corrected. So
Consistency with the building code is important.
yes, I was being a little bit optimistic in terms of the size, and it was noted that the reference was correct, but there's other references to other accessory buildings that are 100 square feet as opposed to the generous 160 square feet. So that will be reflected in the tweaks. Other things of note, our consultant is working at trying to finalize the growth projections report. And if they are optimistic, that we'll be able to present that to county council in December. But it looks like that one might be reappearing to county council in January. And also, with respect to our floodplain mapping project, we've been hitting on all cylinders, and the provincial and federal counterparts are quite pleased with the progress that we're making. And we're hoping that before Christmas, we'll actually have a functional model and mapping associated with that. So I know we've traditionally presented our findings to County Council in December, but we have an important meeting on the 15th of December with our provincial and federal colleagues, so we'll probably delay that until January. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions on this report.
Any questions on the planning update? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the update? Councillors Dayu and Carter.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Carter. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council received the planning report PLN-59-2023 entitled Planning Department Update for November 2023 as information.
All in favor? That's carried. The next is a official plan amendment to add additional residential units.
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden, to rest of council. This has been the long awaited recommendation report to include additional references allowing for additional residential units within the county official plan. And that will, it's being recommended to be approved today. And once it's approved, we'll issue a decision for that. And that will spur on the local municipalities to update their official plans to allow additional residential units within their official plan, but more importantly, to stimulate revisions to their zoning bylaw to allow the same. So this is exciting. Through the whole process, we were fortunate not to have many comments received. Of substance, there was several comments received from agencies in support of the amendment. And there was a few comments received by members of the public, just asking for a copy of the decision once it's been rendered by County Council. And probably the most important one, that Municipal Affairs and Housing remained silent through the whole process, which allowed us to expedite this amendment. So also one note in the staff report, it was raised by Councillor Carter. On the very first page, last line, I repeated myself twice. So there, just so that there's no confusion, the second line needs to be deleted in terms of that reference. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions on the official plan amendment or comments? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to approve that? Councillors Burton and Fury.
Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Fury. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council received the November 8th, 2023 planning report entitled County Official Plan Amendment, OPA number 1, Additional Residential Units for Information, and that Haliburton County Council resolved to approve County Official Plan Amendment, OPA number 1, Additional Residential Units as proposed and presented at the public meeting held on October 11th, 2023, and that Haliburton County Council directs staff to issue its decision to approve the county official plan amendment number 1 to agencies and interested parties requesting notice of its decision.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is a draft plan of subdivision or a plan of condominium.
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden, to rest of council. This is an exciting development that's being proposed in the village of Haliburton. It consists of 5 lots and a common elements road, access road. And the 5 lots will be developed at some point for commercial uses that is represented in this industrial park within the village. We've received the applications. So there's 2 of them. We've deemed them complete and we've circulated them to agencies and to the public for comment. That comment window is for 30 days. And hopefully after that, probably the most critical comments to be received will be from the municipality of Dysart. And so we'll be waiting on those comments to be returned before presenting a report to County Council. Also of note to County Council is that Planning Act has been changed. And so we're no longer required to host a public meeting for this particular project. That being said, we've done our due diligence in terms of notification, and we'll be posting on site as well as on the county's website of this project. So happy to answer any questions.
So at this point, we're receiving this for information. Councillor Dayu?
Thank you. And a question for you, Steve, or maybe even for Mayor Ferry. I'm looking at the application form. And I just, out of curiosity, would like to know there's at the very bottom on the left, there's a little schema with a small water body in the map. And I wonder, what is that small water body, and how close is this land to that water body? Just in general terms, is it fairly close?
Well, it's within the influence area of this subdivision. The stormwater management draft that they prepared is taking into account natural features that are abutting it. And the Ministry of Environment has been quick to respond with that in mind. So it'll be something that will be analyzed for its sensitivity and addressed with any sort of revision to the stormwater management plan and conditions of draft plan approval.
Okay, great.
Any other questions? Could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive this for information? Councillors Fury and Shell.
Moved by Councillor Fury, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives planning report PLN 61-2023 entitled Draft Plan of Subdivision 46-T-23001 LRC Campbell and Draft Plan of Condominium 46-CE-2000 or 23002 LRC Campbell for information.
All in favor? That's carried. The next up is your land division activity report.
Thank you, Madam Warren, to rest of council. So the last meeting of the Land Division Committee was delayed because of the Thanksgiving holiday. And as a result, we weren't able to report on this in October. So this is a belated report. The good news is that all the applications that were reviewed by the committee were approved. They were a variety of 6 right-of-ways and 1 easement. The other matter that was discussed with the committee was the prospect of holding the committee meeting during the day. And after some debate, it was decided by the committee that they would prefer to hold the committee meetings starting in January at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? I'm not sure that it was actually accurate to say that we would prefer to do that, but we were convinced that it was the best decision to make. Then could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the land division activity report? Councillors Royale and Carter.
Moved by Councillor Ryle, seconded by Councillor Carter. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council received the planning report PLN 63-2023 entitled Land Division Activity Report for October 2023 as information.
All in favor? That's carried. And finally, could I have a mover and a seconder to accept the land division's new meeting schedule for 2024? Councillors Dayu and Carter.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Carter. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council received the November 8th, 2023 planning report PLN 57-2023 entitled Land Division Committee Meeting Schedule for 2024 as information.
All in favor? That's carried. I should comment just in addition to that on the new schedule, there's a considerable amount of overtime being saved by moving to daytime meetings on that, which was probably one of the primary reasons for us making the change. Councillor Fury.
I just wonder how the RFP for the short-term rental, will we see that in December, or a proposal on that, or?
Thank you, Madam Chair, to the rest of council. My understanding is the procurement officer has done a final change, and that is with the 4 municipal CEOs to review and confirm that it's to their liking. With that, it will be released.
Mr.
I think
CAO?
it was released at the end of last week.
I'm slipping by here.
I'm glad to hear that it's gone out. Any other questions on that? Okay, thank you, Mr. Stone. Next up is Public Works. Morning, Zil.
Morning, Warden. Morning, members of council.
So you have the Public Works status report
I
for
do.
us.
Yeah, there's our standard 3 reports. Just a few interesting notes. We'll have the OSIM structures report hopefully for the December meeting. And our consultant will be presenting that report. And the County Road 21 multi-use path. I'm working with the one of our consultant in regards to the traffic lights at Independent and Industrial to see if it makes sense to move them over. And I'm just waiting for their recommendation on that one. For maintenance, we're ready for winter. And we might get a taste of it tonight. So, we're just finishing odds and ends for through the summer operations as well.
Sil, I wonder if you could tell us what your anticipated a meeting is for a report on the rail trail and when we might be looking at the side-by-side issue.
That will be at the November 22nd meeting.
Okay, thank you. I know that there are outside parties who are quite interested in that report.
Mhm.
Any other questions on the Public Works status reports? Could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive them? Councillor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Fury.
Moved by Councillor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Fury, be it resolved that the November 2023 status report on capital projects, operations and approvals and road maintenance be received for information by Haliburton County Council.
All in favor? That's carried.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. So next are our administrative reports. First is the correspondence summary listing. Are there any, is there any support for any of the correspondence that we've got? Councillor Ryan?
Yes, I'd like to suggest that we support 2 of them. One is the municipality of Blue Water, which is childcare availability in Ontario. And the other one is the corporation of the municipality of Wawa, which is provincial legislation for third-party short-term rental companies. I read both of them, and although there's not a lot of detail in them, I thought that they were well worthwhile us looking into.
Comments or thoughts about that, Councillor Carter?
Did we not already do the one on the short-term rentals? I think we already supported it in the previous meeting.
I think if I read this properly, and I could be wrong, I apologize. For not.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think this is related more so to having a legislation similar to what they put in Quebec, which is now going to make the agencies technically responsible, not just the short-term rental people who are renting, but the agencies who book them and manage them. They are now going to become accountable, same as they are now in the province of Quebec. I don't know if they're different or not.
It would seem to me that we did support a resolution to put more regulations in place. Now, whether this is significantly different, like I don't know.
I'd have to go back and look, to be honest, but
I wonder if we could ask for a follow-up on that and bring that back if it is in fact different. Councillor Diane?
And similarly on the correspondence from Blue Water, I know that we did discuss this piece of correspondence at the Jack Committee the last time we met. And what we were told by staff was that they're coming to the issue via a slightly different angle. There are some points that for Haliburton don't really bear fruit. They have addressed certain things in other ways, and there's been another piece of correspondence that has come via the county in the past. So it's a little bit of a hodgepodge, and I think my suggestion would be that before we support it, I'm in support of obviously of solving this problem, but we run this through the filter of Jack just to make sure that what we say does in fact reflect the knowledge here in the county.
Other comments?
I would agree with Councillor Day on that.
Well, you're both more informed on what's going on at the Jack Committee, so I appreciate that. So we'll defer that if that's acceptable to you.
I just want to make sure that the issues are dealt with, and if they're dealt with, then I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any other comments about correspondence? Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence summary? Councilors Carter and Royale.
Moved by Councillor Carter, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives for information the correspondence listing for the period of October 22nd, 2023 to October 31st, 2020.
All in favor? That's carried. Next on the agenda is a project update on electronic document and records management. Good morning, Mr. March.
Morning, Warren Danielson, members of council. So before you today is an update regarding the electronic document and records management system project being undertaken by the county and 4 local municipalities. The purpose of implementing a records management system is to improve how we all manage our corporate records, including reducing staff time trying to find electronic documents, as well as reducing risks related to misfiled records, premature destruction of records, as well as excessive retention of records. As stated in the report, the previous county council approved the allocation of $100,000 from the Municipal Modernization Fund to be used towards this project. Through the monthly IT status reports, I have previously updated council on the creation and release of the Joint Records Management RFP, and that RFP closed on September 15th. A project team consisting of representation from the county and the 4 local municipalities have reviewed the proposals and have recommended awarding the RFP to StoneShare. StoneShare specializes in records management systems, and they have implemented solutions in 41 Ontario municipalities, including many of our Eastern Ontario counterparts. As the RFP award was under $100,000 and was already included in the 2023 budget, it has been approved by the CAO. Although the project itself has come in under $100,000, that was the $100,000 that was allocated for the project. I am respectfully requesting the remaining funds to be kept in the budget and carried over into 2024. While StoneShare will provide the county with a records management solution, there are other implementation components that need to be considered, such as licensing and support, migration tools, and staff training. Retaining the extra funds previously allocated for this project will go a long way to ensuring that the project is a success. That's my summary of the report. More than happy to answer any questions.
And the total sum of the funds allocated for this came from modernization funds?
Yes.
Questions or comments? Councillor Carter.
Just for knowledge here, are we looking to take any of our old paper only records and digitize them and put them through into this system? Is that part of this project at all?
Quite likely a little later down the road. So the main scope of the project is to deal with our electronic files. And I think after we get that done, then the records management working group will probably kind of reconvene and take a look and say, okay, now can we tackle our paper records? I know at least here at the county, previous work has been done to categorize our paper files according to the Tom Rims categorization system. So we're already kind of along that road. So now the electronic files is kind of what the scope of this project is. But I can see possibly 2 of them converging a little later down the road.
Okay.
I can maybe add a little to that.
Okay.
about 5 years ago, I think we went through a process where we had our bylaws and minutes from our historical bylaws and minutes that were in paper format. We had them digitized, so they are now in a format that is searchable and everyone in the county has access to those. And then I think we've had some pricing. Land division records are a bit of an anomaly. They are a permanent record that you can't, and so we've looked at digitizing those, but it's an incredibly expensive proposition. So it's something that we parked and haven't really pursued in earnest. So I think there is more work to do in that area, but we have made some strides to digitizing those, what we can.
Councillor Dayu.
Mike, do you have just a ballpark idea of what the annual licensing fee might be?
So probably for the first 2 years of the project, there's some migration software that I'm hoping to purchase, the county purchase, and then have all 5 partners utilize, and that'll be about 10,000 per year. So that's $20,000. Ongoing, probably I would say $8,000 to $10,000 in annual support. Now, it's a little hard to say whether or not that's going to be suitable, whether it's going to be too much or not enough. But that's kind of what we're looking at going forward.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Carter.
So once we get all this done, then have we got a hermetically sealed vault that'll keep the servers in, or like is there a whole additional backup process that's going to have to go along with this?
So through the warden. So we're looking at utilizing the Microsoft 365 platform for the documents management and records management through their SharePoint application. So that provides a backup, or sorry, not a backup. So that's where it's going to be hosted. And as we currently do today, we have a backup software that can go pull all that stuff down and keep it here on site. So we'll still have 2 copies, one off site and one on site. So we're already situated for that. There may be some additional licensing costs as more and more people get on the system, but they'll be minor.
If there are no further questions, could I have a mover and a seconder to authorize pre-approval for the funds to go into the 2024 budget? Councillor Carter, seconded by Councillor McKechnie.
Moved by Councillor Carter, seconded by Councillor McKechnie, be it resolved that Haliburton County Council received for information the November 8, 2023 electronic document and records management system project update report, that Haliburton County Council pre-approved the remaining $65,452.48 of the EDRMS budget to be carried over to the 2024 budget to be used for the EDRMS implementation.
All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Next is a request for funding from the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus to continue with the 7 and 7 housing project. I think I'll turn that over to Mr. Rudder to address.
Thank you, Warden. The council will recall that early in the spring, I believe, representatives of the EOWC came and presented the concept of the 7 and 7 plus project. It's a regional housing initiative that could see the development of between 450 and 500 houses or rental units in the county of Haliburton, and significantly more than that across the region. Based on the premise that for every one affordable unit, there would be 3 sort of more market geared in or units developed as well by the private sector partners. A consulting firm, KWM, which I'm sure we're all familiar with KWM. It has a local presence, did a feasibility study. Their conclusion was that the EOWC was well positioned to advance this regional housing solution. But there is more work to be done in order to, I guess, make the decisions necessary to move the project forward. So they are proposing to retain EORN to do some of that work. They're suggesting a budget of 468,000 to be shared equally by the 13-member municipalities across the province or across EOWC. I do think it's important to note that I did note the deliverables in the report, but I think it's important that that information or much of that information will be valuable, whether the 7 and 7 project proceeds in whole, in part, or even not at all. So it's not that this is really throwing good money after bad. These deliverables could be used to support housing development in the county, even if the 7 and 7 project does not move forward. So as I've noted in the report, we have an affordable housing targets reserve that really is set aside to develop new housing units in the county. And so I am recommending that there 36,000 be funded from that reserve.
Questions or comments? Councillor Fury.
Well, I'm just concerned that there's so many players in this housing market now. And I don't know, you know, the feds are getting involved, the province is involved, municipalities are involved, EORN's involved. I just don't know. I'm confused, and I'm not sure it's like the Cell Gap project. It's nowhere close to that. It's a different animal. And I just don't know how successful. I'd be anxious to know what the $468,000, what kind of information that's going to give us. I'm not clear on that.
Through you, Warden. I think one of the things that they're going to do is try to sort through that, to be honest. There are so many players, there are so many programs that are available. You know, I think we've even seen, you know, some conversation between the province and the feds this week about the feds inserting themselves directly with municipalities. And it's really difficult for municipalities to figure that out. So EORN, they're really not looking at being the developer. They're really just looking at this from a consulting project management standpoint to identify what those programs are, how they might support this project, where we might, the Warden's Caucus may look for funding. The other thing that the 7 and 7 project does, and you'll recall Mr. Pine and Mr. Emo talked about this when they came, is that it can support various development proposals. So it could be that it supports a Kawartha Lakes Haliburton Housing Corporation project. It could be that it supports a new not-for-profit. It could be, so they really haven't made a determination on that yet. I did, you know, that they've talked about templates that can be used to apply for funding opportunities. Again, one of our challenges in a really small municipality is it's difficult to, you know, fill in those grant applications when they come out. They're usually a very short timeline. So there will be information that we can use for that. They'll continue some work. I know that EORN have met with the home builders associations. In fact, they met with the head of our local home builders, who seem very supportive of it. We received a letter. They really like the concept. They will look at the financial aggregators to support the project, best practices across Eastern Ontario. One of the things we're all facing is a shortage of building officials. And so they're actually looking at, is there a way we could aggregate that, whether it's, you know, a training, whether it's, you know, someone with a specialized skill or a group that they could retain to provide those supports to our local building officials. Immigration, workforce skills, and housing strategies are really challenging. We need to figure out who's going to build these homes. I think that's a challenge all across. So they're looking at whether there's a way we can work together on that. So I think the idea is EORN does that research, comes forward, and as they say, I think the beauty of this is that if the 7 and 7 project goes forward, that's all information that can be used in those applications. If it doesn't, it's all information we can use as we look at smaller projects in our region.
I think it does tie some of those loose ends together, and it also, in my mind, it sounded like the model that's being used is very similar to EORN's working on the Cell Gap project. Other questions, Councillor Rayo?
Yeah, this has been an awesome discussion, and the subject itself is obviously widespread and dynamic. So every once in a while I kind of lose track of what we've talked about with who. And I'm wondering, is this project that we're talking about now anything to do with combining commercial and residential? We talked about the possibility of having more cost-effective housing if it's merged with a commercial entity. Was this brought up at all in anything in this discussion?
Through you, Warren, my recollection is that when we talked about that, we talked about a community improvement program that would have to be, I think, done as an official plan amendment here to allow for sort of enhancements or financial incentives, I should say, for the creation of residential units above commercial properties. Not necessarily about this. Again, though, there are, the intention is that these, up to 28,000 units be rental units, affordable rental units. And so it doesn't really touch on the commercial side. That doesn't mean that one of the, proponent, it's quite normal for residential developments to include a commercial component or a commercial space. That could easily happen through one of the developments. Again, I think one of the beauties of this project is that they're not saying this is what every development looks like across Eastern Ontario. There's all kinds of flexibility for different developers, different looking developments. And so if if somehow commercial development could be worked into that, I'm sure that that's something that, a developer may look at.
Go ahead.
But the only reason I brought it up is because we were talking about, again, different project, different subject, but having said that, that the commercial entity would go a long way to offset the overall cost of maintaining and keeping the affordable housing affordable. And so I just didn't know if it was included in this project.
Yeah, I think, again, I've had some experience with community improvement programs in another community that I worked in. I think they're incredibly successful at doing two things. First of all, it allows that main street to fill up with commercial enterprise, which is great for the economy, great for social development, community development. But it also does provide more housing alternatives as well. So I think it's something that would be a great collaboration between the county and local municipalities here. It would be something I think that would have to be done both as a collaboration. But I think it's a great opportunity if it's pursued.
Councillor Carter.
A little bit further to that, in everything that is being looked at by KLHHC, that's always a consideration to try to find a situation where you could have the first floor being used in some commercial manner or even quasi-governmental manner, and having that tenant help defray the costs of the rest of the building. So I would think that, it is included, although not, directly addressed as one of the things that you would want that, you're trying to do. But it's anything that we can do to create affordable housing is being looked at right now. And just my point on this is that, we have this reserve of $260,000 or $280,000 for housing, and this is a way to try to get some information or to get that housing to happen. So I would support that we would use that reserve. That's, this is an important potential step in getting us to be able to build some housing.
Councillor Fury.
Certainly I support it, but I did hear one number there, but I didn't hear Haliburton County share.
38,000 out of a reserve of 280.
Yeah, and we have 458. There's a total around there.
468.
Yeah, okay.
So are there any further questions or comments? Could I have a mover and a seconder then to approve the request? Councillors Carter and Rael.
Moved by Councillor Carter, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council received report CLK-26-2023 and that Haliburton County authorize a contribution of $36,000 towards the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus 7 and 7+ regional housing plan to support the development of a business plan and implementation plan. And finally, that this contribution be funded from the Affordable Housing Targets Reserve.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next item was the request from HHS and the foundation for funding for a CT scan and mammography equipment. If you'd like to speak to that, I'd like to thank you for the detail that you provided on the report.
Thank you, Warden. The initial request came to County Council and County Council asked staff to develop a report with a recommendation on how it could be funded. I've included that, basically suggesting that you could increase taxes by $200,000 in 2024, leave that money in each subsequent budget until 2028, and transfer from reserves to be identified later after the audit when we know the final reserve balances in each of the reserves. And then transfer 300,000 in each of 2024 and 2025 to make $500,000 contributions in January of 2024 and January of 2025. And then paying that money back to those reserves at 200,000 per year in 2026, 27, and 28. So ultimately a one-time bump in the budget, which would stay there for 5 years, and then paying those reserves back over time. I did think it was important context to provide sort of the impact that a local CT scan would have on county services. We know that we do a significant number of interfacility transfers, but our paramedic chief has estimated that a local CT scan would eliminate 60% of those interfacility transfers. Currently for CT, these are only for CT numbers. It's estimated that our ambulance spend approximately 2,000 hours per year transporting patients outside of our community. That's time when those ambulances, which are intended for 911 response, are not able to answer emergency calls in the county of Haliburton. The travel time and costs associated with it are only part of the story, though. The paramedics stay with the patient at all times at the receiving facility where they're getting their CT scan. Often they are not rushed right in; they have to wait, and so they spend a considerable amount of time sitting there waiting for the CT scan to take place, and then waiting for the results of the CT scan. I would say that staff have spent a considerable amount of time over the last few years trying to work with the other facilities to try and expedite that process, even suggesting things like not waiting for the results of the test, because 78% of the time they were returned to the hospital or returned to Haliburton in the ambulance. So we have suggested even if we load the patient and start the trip back, and then once it's done, if we have to go back, but there was really no appetite for that in the other communities. Our call volumes for this work are rising substantially. We had 218 calls in 2019 and 357 in 2021. There are a number of reasons for that. We have an aging population and an increasing population, as you know, and has been well documented. We are becoming even busier with economic activity, particularly tourism. But the other is that there's just a growing reliance on the part of physicians of what is now really considered a basic diagnostic tool. And so we don't anticipate that those numbers will go down. We don't think they're an anomaly. We would say that I'm confident in knowing just, conversations with our EMS staff that if these trends continue unabated, I'm really confident that we would be requesting at least an additional 12-hour ambulance in 2025, or that staff would. Obviously, that comes with costs. Our 50% from the province is calculated retroactively. So in the first year, there would be $550,000 cost directly to the county of Haliburton. And then the next year, that would be covered 50% by the province. So there's a substantial investment we believe would be required if we don't have this technology locally. That assumes that we would be utilizing one of our existing 12-hour vehicles, making it 24. If that didn't work, we would have to be looking at an additional ambulance vehicle as well. And to purchase an ambulance, fully equip it with power load, power cot, and all of the other supplies, it's about $340,000. There are other impacts, I can't emphasize enough, our staff are dedicated and they are committed. And so they will do what we ask them to do, but it has been a topic of conversation at every labor management meeting that we've had in the last number of years. These transfers take a toll. I think most of us have driven the roads on a regular basis between here in Lindsay and here in Peterborough, and they are really not good roads certainly for even the paramedics in the vehicle, but they're sitting in the back, and it's not like they're driving in a Cadillac. It's very much a basic seat, and it is taking a physical and emotional toll. Even the fact they have radios and they hear calls and they know that they can't respond to them. So yeah, of course, as well, there's wear and tear on our ambulances. We believe that they travel an additional 70,000 kilometers per year to make these transfers. That comes with a cost, a shortened lifespan, and additional repair costs on our vehicles. Our EMS master plan, this is not new. Council has certainly talked about this before. Our EMS master plan recognized these challenges, and you'll recall that the 3 top priorities to be addressed in the immediate term, and 6 of the 13 that were to be addressed in the next 3 years, relate directly to the issue of interfacility transfers. This has been an issue that we've been working on for a very long time. Again, this is anecdotal, but our physician and healthcare recruitment coordinator has certainly reported to County Council that physicians, particularly less experienced ones who are considering practice in our community and working in the emergency department, particularly once they find out that we don't have a CT scan, they are simply unwilling to commit to practice here. And that is really having an impact on our ability to attract physicians. And that impacts both the hospital and family practice, because many of those physicians do both. So I just wanted to make clear that there is certainly the lack of a CT scan has an impact on our EMS department, on our healthcare and physician recruitment. And certainly that doesn't even touch on the economic benefits of keeping our money circulating locally when people go locally to get a CT scan as opposed to driving out of the community. So I thought that was important context as you consider the request, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Councillor Shell, and then Councillor Ferry, then Councillor Rail.
So I've written this out, so just bear with me. For starters, I'm really concerned that there was no opportunity for public discussion or input for this is public funding. In my 17 years on council, I've never had a time where a delegation has come before council for asking for $1 million that was basically approved at the same meeting without the fulsome report coming back. I do appreciate what Mike has provided today, although I think that some of it is a little bit of guesswork, because that's the best you can do, right, Mike? While there's no doubt in having a CT scanner in the county could be beneficial, I still struggle to believe that we'll find the staff to operate it. While it might attract some emergency doctors, I want to remind the community and everyone in this room that we had a fully staffed emergency department that HHS closed, throwing away emergency doctors who have been faithfully staffing the emergency department for decades. And now they're asking for $1 million for a CT scanner to attract emergency doctors. I'm still very conflicted on how to vote on this. While I obviously want to support something that would benefit the residents of Haliburton County, I still struggle as a member of Haliburton County Council that we have no representation at that table and have little to no say on how health services are delivered to our constituents, even though we provide a significant amount of money. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Councillor Fury next.
Well, this isn't the first time that a request like this had come to County Council. The one for the hospital addition in Minden and in Haliburton came here and were funded in a similar manner as this request. Certainly, I think it's almost painless with the 1% the way we're doing it, the way Mike suggested. If we can't find $100,000 or $200,000 in a multi-million dollar budget, then I think we're missing something here. There's got to be some room to move. I would hate to think that, I have the same concerns that Lisa does about how it gets operated, but that's not our mandate. That's the health services, whether we like them or not. But, you know, I would hate to think also that somebody had to go to Lindsay and there was something critically wrong. So they were an hour getting there, an hour getting in, 2 hours. And if they'd have been done up here, they'd have known in 15 minutes if they need to be flying them out to Toronto. And that is probably going to happen more than enough with the way our population's growing. So I know Dysert's a big payer and I'm committing 40% of taxpayers' money towards this million, but I'm all in. I think it's very important.
Thank you. Councillor Rao.
Yeah, I'm looking at it purely from the point of view of the impact on our EMS program. And I respect what Councillor Shell has basically said. However, go back into the numbers. I'm not going to argue with 2,000 hours. To me, that's just basically it. But 2,000 hours is a number that in the private sector we used a lot. 2,000 hours is 40 hours a week times 50 weeks. So it's a person year. So what you're basically saying is if the ambulances are taken out of service for what we normally use them for basically 2,000 hours, then we have 2 people. I'm assuming there's 2 people in an ambulance. So we're going to hire 2 people strictly for the purposes of driving an ambulance back and forth to wherever it is we're going. Now, if you take that in consideration, there's a loaded cost of those people. Then you look at the vehicle itself. The vehicle itself costs a busload of money to operate. We were talking about the replacement cost. We're talking about just the basic going. That's also the equivalent of, bear in mind, I know there are 12-hour shifts as opposed to 40-hour shifts, but having said that, that's the equivalent of an ambulance being removed from service as well. So I'm not going to debate the overall public opinion of it. I'm looking at purely the dollars of it. And I would find it very difficult not to support this.
Councillor Carter.
First of all, I want to say that I, have complete support for the foundation and the work that they do and the people that have donated money over the years. They raise money, and by the nature of the foundation, they raise money for things, for for the palliative room, for equipment, and so on. So they've done a good job here also. And of course, I lose my notes at the wrong time. Okay. I guess 2 things. Thank you, Mr. Rutter, for doing this analysis and how we could do this in the budget. But I'm a bit surprised and stymied as to why we're not considering this motion when we do the budget, as opposed to just an ad hoc thing where somebody comes and asks for money and we decide that we're going to give it to them in a special manner. This should be part of our budgeting process. And as Councillor Ferry has said, hopefully we can find the money that is needed to do that. And I'm sure that we could, but we should be considering this with the budget. I will remind everybody that this is a project that HHS has been working on for quite some time. They knew that even as far back as June that they were getting the approval, so they could have come at any time. I suspect that they didn't want to show their faces around this council in and around June, just after they had closed the emergency room, and so it's been delayed to now. But bad planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. So I think this should be done as part of our budgeting process. I think I and everybody would like more medical facilities. In the last 2 weeks, I needed to have a CT scan, and I dutifully got myself over to Bracebridge, and I recognize that I have the health and the wherewithal to be able to get myself over there, and that was pretty easily done. But so, having something closer is better. I believe that as much as we do the analysis and go by the numbers, the benefits here are being oversold a bit. As we were told, this is something that's going to operate from 8 to 4:30, Monday to Friday. So that's 25% of the hours in the week. So as long as you happen to need that urgent CT scan in 8 to 4:30, Monday to Friday, you may be covered. But outside of that, we're going to have to go somewhere else. The idea is very nice to say that we would call in somebody to operate it on an emergency basis. But in talking to CT departments in a number of other locations, they're all having staffing difficulties. As a matter of fact, they've had to reduce the number of hours they are available because, like everything else in healthcare, there's not enough nurses, there's not enough doctors, there's not enough technicians for this type of thing. So I think that, as much as it will save some ambulance trips, I'm not sure how many, but not here to debate that situation. I guess I wonder if this is the best healthcare investment that we can be making right now. Do we need different facilities? Do we need other things? Do we need, as an example, an emergency department in Minden? What is the best way to invest the money? To a certain extent, I don't want this to be looked upon as a shiny trinket that's sort of distracting everybody from, our total healthcare situation here. I'll remind everybody, and I don't think I have to, that HHS has not been very transparent with us over the last little while. As a matter of fact, they've been quite the opposite. We don't know the basis of their decisions. We don't know why they're doing things in such a way. So I guess to get my support, and I think to get this council's support, I think that we should demand that we get 2 seats on the board. This is a situation where this board is independently making decisions without consulting us, without actually talking to us in any way, shape, or form. They're not sharing information with us, and they are probably the most important institution in this county, and particularly as our population grows and gets older. So I don't know that, having 2 seats on the board would change things, but at least it would get in a more transparent manner exactly what's happening and how things are managed at HHS. So I will not support this today because it should be part of the budget process. And at the budget process, if HHS is willing to give us 2 seats on the board, in other words, Haliburton County, and we can appoint whomever we wish to those seats, then that's what I would ask for my support.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Fury.
I'd just like to know, I couldn't find any other board where councillors were on the health services board. Okay,
There
one.
are.
It's all over.
It is, okay. All right, well, I guess there's 2 things here. This is a fundraising program. And I happen to know that there's more than the CT scan included in this $4 million. There's
Mammography equipment.
yeah, there's other equipment. I think there's 2 other pieces of equipment that we need that are almost worn out. One we don't even have. So I don't know. I mean, I know I hear what Councillor Carter is saying. I know they haven't been transparent, but you know what? We can't keep going back and finding fault. We've got to move forward here. And if we're going, we got a lot of things. We got a lot on our plate, but healthcare is one of the things. The only things that we're contributing is trying to bring doctors in here and equipment. That's the only thing we have to be concerned about. So, I know it's to prove it before the budget process, I totally agree with you, is a question. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people out there. What are they going to do next? Are they going to come to each township and request? If we do it here, that will be it. They won't be coming to individual townships asking for money. We've been through this 2 or 3 times now. So I'm in favor of moving forward on this.
Councillor Dayu.
Thanks. I really am largely in support of everything that's been said. There's a great deal of consistency that's been said. And honestly, with the timeline that's been presented by the CAO in terms of where we could get that money and how we could refund it, I think that's reasonable. And I would be in favor of moving forward today if it meant that we could speed up getting a CT scanner. But I also very much honor Councillor Carter's position that this should fold into the budget. I really do honor both. I do appreciate Councillor Carter's comments on how this is 25% of the working week. However, thinking about all of the regular needs for CT that would be able to be scheduled within that time, I'm confident that a CT scan would enable folks such as yourself who don't require those emergency services to come in and use that scan in a way that is much more comfortable for them. So I think that has to be built into our understanding of what happens within the 25% of that week. A lot can be fit into those hours. And I very much honor Councillor Schell's concerns as well. And I think you're both right. I think we need much greater representation. We represent the people of Haliburton County, and we should have a seat on those boards. And that voice must be heard. So I do concur that more push should be, should be taken there. So really, I guess I look to others as to whether you would like to pass it today or wait until budget. But in general, I'm in support of this this initiative.
I'm just waiting to be able to make comments myself. No, go ahead. Councillor McKechnie, and then Councillor Schell, and then Councillor Ferry.
I just I don't want to like argue with the other councillors about like the negativity, any negativity to something that's benefiting our healthcare system, which when you look around an hour and a half one way, whether it's Bracebridge, Lindsay, Huntsville, all around us, there's CAT scan machines. And Haliburton's got an opportunity to get one. Let's exaggerate and say tomorrow. And we know what a benefit it is to help out EMS and also recruiting doctors. The money, sure, $1 million is a lot of money, but the way it's laid out, it's not going to be a big hit on everybody right away. So I just like, if we don't have our healthcare system, and doctors, I don't think are going to come to Haliburton or Minden or into our area if we don't have this type of equipment. So, I mean, I'm all in favor of passing it today because I think I've had a lot of people tell me that they've driven to Lindsay or to wherever and it wasn't a good experience. So I just think we should all rally together here because it's for our healthcare system, which is, to me, is one of the most important issues we deal with daily. Thank you.
Councillor Schell.
Just to something that Councillor Ferry had said, I just wanted to, Marie, I know that we as a county have always, supported and other people do for things at the hospital. It was just the way that it came before us that I had never experienced before. And I just, again, I think it's more of a budget discussion. And trust me, nobody wants to be proven wrong more that this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to Haliburton County. I don't mean that at all. I just feel like there should have been more public input into the amount of money that we are talking about here. That's all I'm saying.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Warden. I thought maybe you missed me over in the corner here. No, I'm fully willing to move forward today with it, with the funding if we can. I'm sure there's a way that we will make it work. I don't think it's going to be a huge hit to the taxpayers. And I agreed 100% with what Jennifer had said some of her comments that it's time for us to move forward and try to get along. And yes, we'll help. We'll probably end up helping with some of their fundraising as well.
Thank you. Councillor Ferry and Councillor Rail.
Lost what I was going to say there. I think that I don't think that if they couldn't raise any more than $1 million, if the community didn't come forward, then it's not going to happen anyway. They haven't got the money to buy it. And I happen to know there's another huge donation that is contingent upon the county coming forward. Because they're saying, what's the county council going to do? Like they did before. They did on other occasions. So that's just what I wanted to say. And he's had his hand up.
Councillor Rail.
Yeah, I support it going forward today. Having said that, I think I'm hearing quite clear from my two councillors that I don't think we should write them a check and have a nice day and let us know how you make out. I think that when we do this, there has to be conditions based on writing a check of that magnitude. So in other words, how much information are we going to get? How is it going to be spent? All of the things that go along with the integral part of spending money effectively. I don't know why that could not be done. And if that can be done, it might take away a lot of the challenges and worries that both Councillor Shell and Carter have, because accountability, and I am a full believer in accountability, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we don't get the politics of whether they're running in a decent corporation in between that and the need for what we have in terms of medical services within Haliburton County. So I think if we approved it today, but we worked out some kind of a contract negotiation, whatever the right word is for getting the wording, so that they are accountable for every nickel that is being spent of our $1 million.
Thank you. A couple of comments. I know this is something that I've struggled with quite a bit, and as you've all seen, there's been a certain amount of correspondence coming and going over this. I'm actually surprised that there wasn't more correspondence or people who wrote to me voicing concerns. And I quite challenging to respond to some of those concerns because I know people are highly emotional and upset about this. I've struggled with it a lot, and I have tried to separate the need for the equipment from the concerns that we've had with Triple HS, because I mean, there's no question that there are concerns. You know, and there is a lot of work that in my mind needs to be done to reestablish levels of trust and communication. You know, I go back to a meeting that Councillor Carter and Ryal and myself and Councillors McKechnie went to some time ago at the
Heather Lodge.
The meeting, that's right, thank you. And our biggest point that we made was the need for communications, and that was far before any of this started, and we all hammered that point in. And you know, there has been some effort made, but nowhere near enough. I would like to suggest, sort of in line with what Councillor Ryal has said, that we do make it conditional on membership on the board. Now, I have been given understanding from at least 3 members of the board that is in the works. The problem with that is, and I don't know why they couldn't have done this at their last annual general meeting, because they should have, but they were having a legal review done of their bylaws, and that they apparently have to make that additional change at their AGM. I do think still that there's a way for them to accommodate membership and attendance at their meetings by members of county council. So to me, I would recommend that we make our decision conditional on membership in the board. You know, even if it's 1 member, 2 would be optimal and really good. One of the things that I wanted to mention was that it was my understanding when they made the presentation to us that they did talk about initial hours, as you had outlined, that there would sort of be like 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and I think that they did say that it was intended that those hours would be extended over time. I'm assuming given availability of staffing, and that there would be some form of on-call service, less than perfect maybe, but they did suggest that that would be the case. I know that the idea of pre-approval of this amount of money is when it comes to it should come to budget. We have many times pre-approved amounts of money that exceed $200,000 a year for pieces of equipment that we know we're gonna have to wait for. There's been as much as $350,000 for ambulances we pre-approved. We pre-approved the acquisition of plow trucks, which are, somewhere in the same amount of money. So, I'm not so concerned with the pre-approval, as long as we're all in agreement that this is an expenditure that we should make. I would also suggest, as a follow-up to the concerns that we've got about triple HS and where we sit versus, as has been mentioned, we represent the people in Haliburton County. And I think that should be reflected, in membership. I also know that there was a bit of a glitch and this is kind of bleeding into the next topic on our agenda, about delegations at conferences. There was a bit of a glitch in our giddy up for the last conference with respect to a delegation. That one of the things that I wanted to propose was that we make a very strong delegation about our circumstances here in Haliburton County and what can be done about it at Roma. So I'm in support of moving forward, but conditional on membership on the board. So I'd like to hear thoughts on that. I don't think that that's an unreasonable expectation. Councillor Fury, then Councillor Carter.
I would move the resolution forward based on representation. I would move that we move forward with the recommendation subject to approval of the representation on the board.
A seconder? Councillor Ryle. I know Councillor Carter wants to make a comment before we vote on that.
Yeah, I just, again, our budgetary process, if being the chair of the finance committee is such that, we should be following our normal process on this. The fact that, this group has come out of nowhere and asked for $1 million and we're willing to do it without really doing due consideration for our taxpayers. I find it unacceptable. I agree that we need to do this conditional on membership on the board, but I can't support us doing it outside the budgetary process. It's not that the budgetary process is 8 months from now. We're going to be doing it starting it in the next couple of weeks. So I'm not really thinking that this is too much of a hardship for anybody, but doing this outside of the process is not acceptable to me.
I do take a bit of offense at any suggestion that the rest of us do not take due consideration for our taxpayers, because I think the fact that we're wanting to move forward with this is in fact in support of our taxpayers.
I didn't imply that.
At any rate, I would call for a vote, and if you wish, we can have a recorded vote. Would that be your wish?
Did you want me to read the resolution?
If you would, please.
Moved by Councillor Fury, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receive report CLK-27-2023 regarding the request for a financial contribution to Haliburton Highlands Health Services Foundation CT scan and mammography campaign. That Haliburton County Council approves the contribution to the campaign to be paid in 2 equal installments in January 2024 and January 2025. Conditional upon the provision of 2 seats on the Triple HS Board of Directors. That staff draft a contribution agreement for consideration at a future meeting. And finally, that staff be directed to include $200,000 in the 2024 to 2028 operating budgets to fund this request.
All in favor? Oh, sorry. You can call each vote. Do you want to record a vote?
Recorded vote. Apologize. Have a, bear with me here. Counselor Dayu,
I,
Counselor Fury,
Your microphone.
Okay. Yes,
Counselor McKechnie,
You're on mute.
Yes,
Counselor Burton,
Yay.
Counselor Ryle,
Yes,
Counselor Shell,
Yes.
Counselor Daniels, or Warden Daniels. sorry,
Yes.
I demoted. And Counselor Carter,
Nay.
carry 7-1.
Thank you. So under other business, request for delegations, at the Roma conference. As you heard my comment, I would like to move forward with the delegation to the Minister of Health about our, overall circumstances here. But what other delegations might, be of interest? Well, I guess I'd look for support for that suggestion as well as any other delegations we might want to make. Councillor Carter.
Yeah, and to the Ministry of Health, I think we need to have, we have to decide exactly what it is we want to talk to them about. Quite frankly, an awful lot of our issues, which are incredibly important to us. And, on a scale of the healthcare situation in the province is not something that they can deal with. I mean, they're dealing with, but there are some things in terms of, recruitment of doctors and so on that, that we could ask them to consider. In other words, forcing doctors to work in underserviced areas after they graduate, even though it costs, $25,000 to $30,000 a year in tuition for medical school, that's still only a small fraction of what it costs to train those doctors. So there's an awful lot of money being invested by the province of Ontario in training doctors. And, there could be something that we ask for some sort of a return of service to help underserviced areas such as ourselves, and not just the north. I mean, we're talking about underserviced communities, and we very much are in that situation. We are desperate to the point of it could break very easily with one or two doctors right now. So,
Well, and I suspect that that's the case, in many communities across Ontario, that it's at a really dangerous point.
and sorry, if I could just add, that's not something that would cost the province money, really. And it's sort of one of those things that they can change with the stroke of a pen, as opposed to changing the whole, healthcare system. That's a small thing.
I would suggest that if we're, if we're in agreement that we do have a delegation to the minister, that we, put our heads together and just sort of come to terms on exactly what it is we want to say. Councillor Dayu?
Yeah, I concur completely that it should be very specific. And to that, I would add, it's a great time to give a few sentences or a few words about the wonderful work that Wendy's been doing in order to create the context in which we can receive a new doctor or a series of doctors who are here for a certain period of time after they graduate, to show just how much communities such as ours work hard to create the conditions with which such a program could work. I think it's we could offer, don't know how much we are a model different to other communities, but it's a good reminder that they're not alone, that we are there in partnership to make such a program happen.
So it sounds like we are in agreement that that we have a delegation to the Minister of Health. Are there other delegations that we wish to entertain? Councillor Fury?
I think, I know most of us are facing double-digit percentages in tax increases, just the way things have rolled out after COVID. I think we've got to meet the Ministry of Environment, and we have to impress on them. There's got to be a better way of getting rid of our waste. I think the sooner we start as municipalities telling them we're not doing it properly, you just can't keep landfilling. So it's being done in other areas, and I think that's something that it's going to eat us all up cost wise if we have to haul every bit of garbage and truck it to Leamington or wherever, and then they landfill it. That's not getting rid of it. It's going to seep into the ground somewhere. So I was hoping Eastern Ontario would take that on as well, but we can start. Might as well bring the subject up.
Well, there's no reason why that can't be taken to the Warden's Caucus as
Yes.
an issue that we need to
Very much so.
to be following up on. We just need to know precisely what it is we're going to be saying when we get there.
Yeah. Why are we not incinerating garbage like everybody else is? In rural Ontario with smaller units. Oshawa's got one. Peterborough could have one. So I think the more they hear it, the better it is.
Any other thoughts on that? Councillor Carter?
Well, I was, municipal affairs and housing. We, whether it's done through the Warden's Caucus or they should be hearing from us. But the situation we have, as we, in our presentation that we had from KLHC a couple of weeks ago, this is a desperate situation where there has to be some things that can be done to be able to help finance or start, housing. It's, there was that list of 83 or so recommendations, and each of the 4 mayors received something from the new minister saying, you don't have to share this with council, just give me your top 5. So they are looking at it, but our rural lens, this whole situation of when you go through the CMHC program, which is federal, I understand, but where they get you through the first stage and they ask, how close to a metro stop or public transportation is this new building going to be? It shows that it's got this urban lens on it. And we who have not only the fact that it's difficult to build, but we also have to handle that water and sewer situation, which is, huge for us in all urban areas. They have to have that rural lens, because our 10-year waiting list is just as severe or more severe than you have in Toronto, and our homelessness numbers going up. I mean, we have serious situation here, and so anything we can do to get them to think differently, and there are some ideas that are out there. So, and I'd be happy to work on specifics.
Complete agreement with that. I found that the meeting that we had was one of the most disheartening meetings that I've ever attended. It just really set me back. Councillor Dayu, then Councillor Ryle.
Yeah, and a corollary to that, in that list of 54 completely random, totally incompatible items, which I shall not say anything further on, was opening up Crown land. And we've had the conversation here that this is a valuable possibility for creating housing in our county. And I believe that, and I support that, but it has to be done the right way if we're going to do it at all. We can't start mucking about in important watersheds, and it certainly should not come down to people such as ourselves, no offense to anyone, including myself, for deciding what chunk of Crown land should be used. I mean, this is really sensitive ecological decision making, and I wonder if there could be an exhortation in there saying to the bureaucrats who are sitting in Toronto and don't have that rural lens, to say, just because you look at the Crown map, the Crown Atlas map of Ontario, or the Crown Land Atlas of Ontario, you see all of those pink shades or whatever it is on the atlas. Please don't think that it's just open for business. It has to be done in a very sensitive way. And the sooner you start figuring out those algorithms for decision making, the better. And I think we're really well positioned in this county to make that statement.
Thank you. Yeah, that list of, I think it was more like 70 questions. We had an interesting discussion about that and there was a lot of focus on the fact that it's very urban oriented, that, very little of it was appropriate for rural Ontario. Councillor Royale.
We've got three really good subjects there now, so I'm going to try to throw out a fourth one, which again is what we're going to be working on all next year, and that's short-term rental. And the whole idea of what the province of Quebec has done in terms of putting teeth into the ability for municipalities to actually enforce what they're doing. At the end of the day, if we go through all the work and then it's not going to be enforceable from the province, then that could create a problem in everything that we're doing, because we're only going to get a percentage return on the effort that we're putting in. So is it in the same class as the other three? I don't know. But what I do know is it's a priority for us in 2024 and 2025.
I would suggest that the concerns about short-term rentals and the need for regulation about short-term rentals could be folded into the delegation for municipal affairs and housing, sort of blended into the whole housing issue and argument. Councillor Carter?
Is that the ministry that it belongs to?
I think so, yes.
I'm not sure if it, because it
Looking
could
to
be
this- I would think it is,
it could be under finance too, could it not?
but if we can blend it into, if that works. So, it just made me think, gosh, I wonder if we should be reintroducing the Crown Land presentation we made, because there's been absolutely no follow-up on the part of the government to your delegation, which, I heard was extremely well received and everybody thought it was great. And I've followed up on it several times with a zero response. So, I'm just wondering if we might want to hit them on the head with that again as well. But we need to hear agreement. We've got three in particular. So Health, the Ministry of the Environment, and Municipal Affairs and Housing on housing. Yes, sir.
The Crown Land issue was Ministry of Natural Resources.
Yeah, no, I know it would be a fourth delegation, but we wouldn't have to. We wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel with respect to that particular delegation material. Although we might want to tie it into the housing issue, which I don't believe we did before. Councillor Dayu.
I don't feel comfortable voting on a short-term rental delegation as I declare a conflict of interest, so I don't know how to handle that procedurally. Or maybe this isn't being voted on. These three, I don't know how you're.
No, we do have to vote on it. Well, that's unfortunate. Because it's, in this particular resolution, it's a bit of a tenuous conflict, but we will accept your declaration. Is there anything else that we want to add to the discussion? Are we good with what we've got? Could you read the resolution?
I would love to. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council requests the following delegations at the 2024 Roma Conference. Ministry of Health regarding a proposal to require a physician return of service in underserviced communities and an update on healthcare system concerns affecting Haliburton County. Ministry of Environment regarding alternative means of processing solid waste. Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing promoting a more rural lens on housing development and also requesting a provincial solution to short-term rentals. And the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry continuing advocacy on Crown land use.
Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillors Carter and Fury. I guess you should recuse yourself from the room for just a moment. Just with respect to that, Councillor Dayu has previously declared her conflict, so she doesn't need to actually do that again.
She just did.
Okay.
We'll note that in a minute.
All in favor? That's carried. Councillor Rao.
In relation to Councillor Dayu, we have the three things being done. That would only exclude her from the one. She would still be able to participate in the remainder.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Wouldn't exclude her from anything that we didn't have to. Councillor Carter.
I was just wondering if we could contact the MNRF to find out, nothing has really been done. But I do know that, for instance, the MNRF did come through on the trout this year, which is very important locally here, and they said that they would, and they recognized it when we met with them at AMO. So they haven't ignored us, but it might be worthwhile to find out where our original delegation went to before sort of asking for another one.
Well, and absolutely not to take away from the importance of, our special trout here. I just find it interesting that they followed up on something that you tossed in as a zinger at the end of the delegation, and they didn't actually deal with what the delegation was about. Definitely follow up.
So I can clarify that. We had actually done a delegation the year before to the minister about the Haliburton Road
Right,
specifically and asking for support in the
Okay.
yeah.
So the nudge was what actually got it going.
Well, I think it was actually done before the delegation.
Okay, so I would propose at this time, I guess we could maybe move into close but maybe have a 10-minute break. So could I have a mover and a seconder to move into close? Councillor Carter and Royale.
Moved by Councillor Carter, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council enter into closed session for the following reasons: litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality and local board.
All in favor? It's carried. We'll reconvene at 10:40. Welcome back to the open session. Next on the agenda are the bylaws. And before I move into the bylaw to appoint a new CAO, as I said earlier, I'm not going to make a big speech today because I'll save that for tomorrow. Not that it's going to be a big speech tomorrow because I'll have Kleenex. But I did want to just acknowledge that, Mike's 8.5 years with us has been a really productive time. You've taken us through some really substantial projects. We've had some real successes and are on the path for more success. And I just have to say that you've done that with a great deal of integrity throughout everything and humor, which really, makes all of our jobs a lot easier. So I just want to take this brief moment to say thank you so very much, Mr. Rutter.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
And we have a bylaw to appoint a new CAO in Mr. Dyke, and welcome to you. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillors Ferry and Carter.
Moved by Counselor Fury, seconded by Counselor Carter, be it resolved that bylaw 4213, being a bylaw to appoint a chief administrative officer clerk for the corporation of the county of Haliburton, be considered to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, and the seal of the corporation be affixed.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any notice of motion? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder for the confirming bylaw? Councillors Dayu and Shell.
Moved by Counselor Dayu, seconded by Counselor Shell, be it resolved that bylaw 4214, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the November 8th, 2023 meeting of Haliburton County Council, be considered to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, and the seal of the corporation be affixed.
All in favor? And finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Burton.
Moved by Counselor McKechnie, seconded by Counselor Burton, be it resolved at the November 8th, 2023 meeting of Haliburton County Council be adjourned.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, gentlemen.